Okay, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about water and the work that it does. And I was just thinking, have you ever wondered what is so important about some of these big rivers that we have throughout the world? In front of you, I have this little chart. Okay, this chart is showing the map of the world. And there's a couple really interesting things about this map. So you can see in the blue, we have all these rivers. Okay, and there's a code up at the map, the top of the map. The dark brown here is going to be for our mountains. The yellow is the foothills. The green is all the lowlands, and the gray is all this coastal area. So when we take a peek at this and we look at all of our rivers, we notice something very, very interesting. If you look at all of the rivers and where they are running, if you're looking at a map, sometimes it's really hard to tell which direction that they're flowing in. But remember, we discovered that water kind of flows a certain direction, okay? When we had done our experiments before, a few weeks before, we noticed that water had certain properties. And if you remember that the properties of water is that they like to flow downward, and it can take on the shape of whatever space it is taking up. So water tends to flow from high to low. So as you can see right here, we have in the high mountains, our water source is coming from the mountains and down into the coastal area. So if we look at the, as I had just said, over here, there's a whole bunch of really, really big mountain ranges. These are where the Himalayan mountain ranges would be. In this range, you can see a lot of different water sources. There's actually probably 5 or 6 rivers, 7, 8, I think, on this map specifically, that start in that area and flow down towards the water where they let out. There are several different places that are often believed to be the sources. If we look over at Africa as a source, okay, we see some mountains over here, right? And we see some in the lowlands where they start to flow down into those coastal properties again, and again from the mountains. So sometimes it almost looks like water could be flowing upward when we're looking on a map. We can also think about the Nile. When we talked about Africa earlier this year, we did discuss the Nile quite a bit. The Nile begins actually in a lake. The lake is Lake Victoria, and it flows all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. So it's flowing from that lake all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. It is the longest river in the world. We know it's 6,694 kilometers long. If we look in South America, we'll see great rivers, just like the Amazon. Okay, the Amazon flows all the way across South America into the sea. So you can flow it all the way across, mostly through Brazil. It has such a body of water that it gets its mouth and it carries so much fresh water that its fresh water stretches out the surface area of the sea for 40 miles. So you can see that big inlet from where that dumps out into. In North America, we have our Mississippi River. You can see that right here. Okay, so the Mississippi has one of its sources from the Rocky Mountains up here as it comes down and almost up into the Great Lakes. You can see it coming as far back as that. It flows right into the Gulf of Mexico as it goes from its long journey down, cutting almost the entire US in half. Sometimes a river may have a lake as its source, like the St. Lawrence River that comes from the Great Lakes and it flows to the Atlantic Ocean, or it could have another source. But one thing that we know for sure is that water will always find its way as long as it can travel from high to low.